Welcome everybody to this news broadcast of Funambole radioattive for Onda Lunga. This is the current events broadcast of radioattive. Last week, Turkey withdrew from the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence, known as the Istanbul Convention, caused national and international outrage. We are going to talk about this and the context that led to this move, which was not unexpected, with Yakin Ertürk. Yakin is Professor Emeritus of Sociology at the Middle East Technical University, former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, as well as Commissioner for the UN Commission of Inquiry on the Syrian Arab Republic. Welcome, Yakin.
Thank you very much, Loretta.
We are really pleased to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise.
The Istanbul Convention is considered the gold standard to counter a phenomenon that on average affects roughly 30% of women in Europe and beyond. The World Health Organization estimates that 38% of Turkish women have suffered violence at least once in their life, while according to 2014 figures, which were released by the Turkish government, 4 out of 10 women have been physically or sexually abused. 3 out of 10 still marry underage. 33% of girls are not allowed to attend schools. Ankara maintains that the convention is redundant since, in the words of the Minister of the Family, and I quote, "Turkey has national laws to protect women starting from our constitution. Our judicial system is dynamic and strong enough to implement new laws," end quote. Thousands of Turkish women who have taken to the streets to protest strongly against this new move obviously disagree with that assessment. Yakin, 10 years ago, Turkey was the first country that ratified the Council of Europe Convention, a process that paradoxically culminated in Istanbul itself. Erdogan was in power at that time. What has changed in the intervening period to lead to this move?
Well, I think the change was already coming, but as you know, throughout the world, there's a growing, rising right-wing populism. And this, in the way it has manifested in Turkey, is that it has not only brought about very radical anti-woman groups to the political stage, but the government itself has sort of demonstrated a sharp shift in its own policies and its approach since 2010. We were very proud that Turkey is not only the first country to ratify the convention, but was very much active at the governmental, parliamentary, and civil society level in the actual drafting and creation of this convention. So we take ownership of it. So it's a shock that, and when Erdogan introduced it to the parliament for ratification, he said that this will increase Turkey's ability, potential to respond to violence against women, and it will be a major contribution to Turkish governance in that regard. So his very words have really changed. It's a shock. But the thing is, I think we should talk a little bit about what has changed.
Right.
So this is not a legal issue, the withdrawal. As a matter of fact, we have been debating this the past 3 days. All legal experts have declared that this is unconstitutional, and the Istanbul Convention is in fact still in force. So Istanbul Convention is in force today. It is not withdrawn, legally speaking, but we're not talking about legality. Unfortunately, the rule of law in this country has been ruptured to a very serious level, where a presidential decree can come overnight and declare that the convention is withdrawn. So it is being challenged. Today, I think it has been taken to court. The first court case has officially been submitted, and there will be others coming up. So the legal side aside, I would like to talk about the political atmosphere in Turkey. I think, as I mentioned, the right-wing populist movement has been a serious development in this country, where particularly religiously based groups have been launching an organized attack on women's rights issues. And so there's a serious backlash. This has been going on for quite some time, and the economy is in a turmoil. One of the strong points of the ruling party, which is in power now 18, 19 years, which is a very long period, their strong ground was a strong economy at some point. But since 2008, the economy has been declining. And now, of course, under the COVID conditions, it's in serious trouble. So it doesn't have the strong economy to rely on anymore. And politically, there is a great deal of turmoil. And we have so there's a declining support for the ruling party. There is an alarm that they may not make it. And as you may know, they have a partner, which is an ultra-rightist party. And this party, all polls indicate that their support is below 10%. So they are afraid. They're truly afraid. So I think the political motivation behind the withdrawal of Istanbul Convention is very much linked to these dynamics. And by withdrawing from the Istanbul Convention, the government is appeasing and giving a concession to religious right. And already, all these right-wing organizations have been in line for expressing their thanks and gratitude to the president the past 2 days. It is a sad, sad picture. But it's not only the Istanbul Convention we should be looking at. And I think our supporters abroad should be very much aware that there's also a crackdown on the Kurdish party. And a Kurdish parliamentarian has also, there has been a problem there. His, because of some court case, his parliamentary position has been withdrawn. These are all part and parcel of the same package. And the crackdown on, and there is an initiative to close the Kurdish party. So this is also a concession to the ultra-nationalist party to make them guarantee their support and also increase their support in times of election. So as you can see, it's not only a war on women, but it's a war on opposition at large. So any opposition voice, any contrary voice in this country is no longer tolerated. We have in Istanbul, the Boğaziçi University, which may also have been picked up in the international news. A president was appointed, which defied all tradition, and students and faculty are still protesting this. So there are, wherever you look, there is a strong attack on any voice that does not give tribute to the ruling party and its politics. So I think this is something which is important. What are the consequences of this? So we may want to talk about the consequences, and I think there are two very alarming consequences. One, I see a very strong ethical shift in the way Turkey is being governed, and we are we were already worried about how the system is getting authoritarian, but there's a strong move towards authoritarian and theocratic state. Religious notions are increasingly used in public debates. So the very secular foundation of this country, which may not have been perfect, but I think we were, in my lifetime, I think we had hopes of strengthening our democracy and secularism, but all those hopes have come to an end right now. I think it is the secular democratic foundation of the Turkish Republic that is at stake. So I fear that this is not just the Istanbul Convention issue is not just an attack on women and women's rights, or whatever justifications the government is presenting as their reason for withdrawing, but it is an outright systemic issue. And if things go the way they are going, Turkey may be classified as a different type of a country in the near future. We are in 2023. We are expecting to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Turkish Republic. I don't know what we will be waking up to on that day at this moment. This is very scary. So this is a system issue, which may increase the polarization, which is going to increase the polarization in the country. And while attacks on women were being sort of dismissed by many circles as something against these feminists, unreasonable feminists, now I think many of those who were in sort of lingering in the middle see that this is a more serious system issue. So the polarization may be more against the interests of the ruling party than what they had expected. So this is to be seen. At the international level, another implication, and then we can elaborate more if you like. This also signifies a breaking ties with the international community. This is a serious issue as well. So already during the COVID, I think many nations have expressed hostility towards the multilateral system. The attacks on WHO, the many attacks even previous to that on the Human Rights Council. So multilateralism, which I find as a very strong, a very important basis for sustaining human rights standards, is under attack. And Turkey, by withdrawing from an international convention, is really attacking this system at large. So this is another very sort of dangerous momentum, because it can take us into sort of the Cold War era, where national boundaries become a pretext for the governments to do what they want without any international observance. So these are dangerous times and dangerous moments. So what is happening in Turkey is not only happening in Turkey. I think this whole issue of multilateralism has international implications. And this is where the international community, those of us who are for rights and democracy, this is what ties us, not only women's rights, but this whole very danger of attacking the international system. I think we need to develop very strong solidarity networks while responding to what's happening in Turkey, at the same time making the linkages of what may be happening in your own countries. I think this is very important.
And you gave us a lot of food for thought in your examination, and we will come back to some of the issues. But first, I would like to really tackle this issue of populism international that you have touched upon. Obviously, Turkey is not alone in this. Poland and Hungary, other countries that belong to the Council of Europe, are spearheading attacks against women's self-determination and rights. And those attacks, you pointed rightly out, are somehow a bridgehead to attack other rights. what is the common denominator among so the diverse national realities? Obviously, we cannot take, we cannot allocate blame to a virus in this case. It's much more complex than that.
Surely. I think the virus has only made the existing tendencies and inequalities more open. So each country is experiencing the virus within their own existing problems. The point you're making is really very interesting, because both Poland and Turkey, these are two countries where very strongly during the summer months, we were very busy, Turkish women on the streets, Polish women on the streets, because of the initiatives so coming from the government side that withdrawal may be imminent. It is interesting that in both countries, the same rhetoric is being expressed, that Istanbul Convention is anti-family, that it encourages homosexuality, that it is against our culture and religion. Well, Turkey and Poland are of different cultures and different religions. So where's the commonality? During my days as a special rapporteur, this was constantly a narrative I heard when I visited countries. They would say, oh, Madame Rapporteur, our culture. That was always a sort of starting point. Well, my goodness, I always said, well, I don't understand. If every country, I hear the same thing. What culture are we talking about? It is patriarchal culture. It's male-dominant culture. I think there is a great fear that women's movement and the progress that it has made over the past 30 years has come to a point where it is really threatening patriarchal power holders. It's as simple as that. I think this is an initiative to regenerate their power base. So it's a power game. It's not a matter of culture as such, because my culture certainly doesn't dictate the same terms. So it's interesting that these different cultures are reacting in the similar fashion to women's rights issues, all the way from Brazil to Turkey. Well, you even had your problems in terms of abortion, right?
I was about to say.
So these are, I think we need to be very vigilant about these connections and not see these as problems out there, but problems within. And I think this has, these past year and past months, these attacks, the backlash on women across the globe, has also broadened the base of feminist solidarity. As you know, in Europe, the very term feminism had sort of become trivial. I was told, oh, this is back in the 70s. We don't need it anymore.
Right.
Well, now it's coming back. It's coming back, and it's coming back as something that matters for all women, not just a radical fantasy. So I think these are important developments, but how will this awakening, how will these different strikes and protest marches across the globe link with one another to make a transformative movement that can make a difference in the future? I think this is where we need to put a little bit more thinking on. This is where we need to develop our discourse and develop solidarity strategies, because we are all at stake, I believe. We are all facing threats. The threats that we're facing may appear different and more alarming, but at the end of the day, there's no measure of how much of my rights are being infringed upon. If my rights are being infringed, they're being infringed. You know, we cannot compare that it is, oh, it's a little bit better here and a little bit worse there. So, and we know that once the attacks on rights gets legitimacy at the political level, there's no telling where it will end. So we really are at a crossroads in human history at this moment. We are at the verge of a new social contract. There are troubles throughout the world, and we need to make sure that we connect these with one another and not treat them as isolated cases that matter, that is a problem of the other. It's not a problem of the other. It is a problem that we're all facing, I think.
And you mentioned Italy, and of course, we had our share of problems, and we still have. I think that these attacks have a way of being cyclical. Fortunately, it looks as though we are at the moment out of the swamp, but it's still there. Is it still out there? Is awaiting its a moment of resurgence, if that is the right word, because it never really went away. And it's very worrisome because it reproposes itself at regular intervals. Whenever there is a little space, they are very good at insinuating themselves in that space and maintain position. And it is something that I think we should do as well, and we are doing as well. Now, you also mentioned a thing that intrigues me. You were talking about shrinking constituencies, political constituencies for the ruling party, and at the same time, a widening of consensus around the women's protest. Can you describe this in more details? I would like to understand whether there is a balance of power there or not yet.
Well, this is difficult to pinpoint very concretely, of course. You know, you have to be living here to see how day-to-day dynamics are taking shape. But this government, or this party, ruling party, which started in 2001, came with a very promising platform. They were very open, they were very democratic, and their commitment to EU values was very impressive. As a matter of fact, I think they did more in terms of the EU accession process than it was done previously. So it generated a great deal of hope and support internationally and internally. But as the party gained popular support to sort of a 50% level, and as Turkey's relationship with EU didn't really materialize in the way that it had been envisaged, I think the dynamics started changing. Of course, the Syria conflict was an incredible destabilizing factor. And of course, Turkey's role there is another matter that can be discussed at another platform, of course. So all these regional, international, and domestic dynamics created a shift in governance. And after, I think, 2010, we started seeing a more authoritarian rule. Issues that were previously not mentioned, such as abortion, all of a sudden started becoming a political issue. We had legal abortion for years, since 1980s. All of a sudden, the president, who was the prime minister then, one day declared it as murder. So, you know, these kinds of issues started hitting the political agenda. The public discourse started being confronted with issues that we thought were over, that we had left behind. And this kind of discourse, of course, I'd give the abortion as one example, but there are many, many others. Marriage with the rapist and so forth, the laws that we had very good laws, which were also brought into debate, encouraged the right-wing power blocks So they became more vocal and they became more organized in terms of attacking women's rights issues. Journalists, of course, media has been also a major issue, not only women's issues, but it is claimed that there are many, well, the government says that they're terrorists, but there are many journalists who are in prison. So we started shifting. Turkey was sort of a rising star until about 2010. When I was a rapporteur, I was very confident that my country, as a rapporteur, I didn't really need to look at Turkey because things were really moving forward. Then in 10 years ago, things started shifting to the other direction, and discontent started including more and more people in the community. And but still, the popular support has been pretty strong for the president. As a matter of fact, they were able to change from a parliamentarian system to a presidential system. These are they require a strong political pull, and they have been very successful in manipulating the system towards that end. But this may not be the sort of a sustainable picture anymore. In the municipal elections, they lost the major cities. This was a major sort of a slap, political slap, which Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, and many other major cities. These are very important cities. Municipalities are a strong part of the basis of the governance, not only in terms of getting popular support from this electorate, but also economically having control over these cities is very important. So the Istanbul elections, as a matter of fact, was challenged by the ruling party, and they repeated it, and the current mayor won even a greater vote in the second time around. So here you have sort of contradictory trends beginning to emerge. And now with the Istanbul Convention, the Kurdish issue, of course, is still very tricky. You never know people who are in the middle, how they will move. But I believe even there, because the closing of a party, Turkey has suffered so much from this in the past, and this the ruling party has sort of been against closing HDP, but its partner, the Nationalist Party, has been pushing for it. So it's a concession. So, there are all these very contradictory elements working at the same time, which are going to have a strong effect on people in the middle, sort of electorate who are in the middle, even sort of the basis of the AKP ruling party. It would be interesting to see how many of the women are going to deal with this issue, because they were also very much in favor of keeping the Istanbul Convention. As a matter of fact, an NGO which is very much linked to the government made a very neutral statement, very cautious statement, expressing that underneath you can see that they were disillusioned by the withdrawal, but not being very open about it. So these are all going to be shifting their size, and so the alliances and balances are going to be shifting in this country. Polarization is going to take a different turn, I think.
In this shifting and ever mutating grounds, one thing, at least it's clear and constant. The populists, the conservatives are trying to force the women's movement and women's initiatives in general to fight a rear guard battle all the time. I'm afraid they are mistaken. And in this perspective, I wanted to ask, you mentioned already the legal challenges that are being put forward to counter the decision of the government to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention. I wonder what kind of international recourse there could be there to help in this fight?
Well, that's a good question. Now, I think the international situation is very important. Now, globally, things are not very bright. Things are not very promising. The Syrian refugee issue has put the EU in a dilemma, as you know, and it has led to EU sacrificing its own sort of human rights and democratic standards in order to sort of guard itself against refugees. That's one problem. The Trump phenomena of the United States, that has been a major problem, which sort of encouraged strong and kind of right-wing leaders. So these are all problem areas where the international system sort of reinforces what's happening to countries like mine. Of course, Trump is gone. Let's see what implications that's going to have. We don't know yet exactly how much the US is going to bring back sort of a more democratic international policy. So those dynamics are very important. So how the world is going to move will have a bearing on how Turkey is going to get out of this turmoil. But at a more practical level, what can the international community do? Well, already I think the various entities have announced their concern with the withdrawal decision. The Council of Europe, this will have a political ramification, I believe, within the Council of Europe. It's to be seen how the system is going to function. We might also remember that the General Assembly of the UN is headed by a Turkish diplomat at this point. For me, it's scandalous that while Turkey is heading the General Assembly, it is withdrawing from an international treaty. But what's the international community doing about it? I don't know. I don't know about how the institutional side of it is going to deal with this. But our friends, our colleagues, women's organizations, they have been very supportive. And I think that's what we need to see, that we all have to reach out to one another to make sure that we are not alone.
And that was exactly my last question to you. How can in the immediate present extend further support to you?
Well, just give visibility to this issue. And I think we need to have a very strong stand against the arguments that Turkey, Poland, and other countries that are criticizing, debating the Istanbul Convention, their thesis, how to sort of reveal how these arguments are really do not have a basis. That women's rights issues is not against the family, it's against oppression, it's against abuse. And if we are building our families on the basis of abuse and oppression, those families will crumble. You cannot protect them with any law. As you know, the Human Rights Council has been adopting a resolution since 2014 every year on protection of the family. Again, that's also, that was a move against the same kind of concern. You cannot protect the family if the family is abusive. I cherish my family, and my family will not break, because I make sure that we build it on love and solidarity and respect for our children, our men, women, family members. But this is something you have to work on. It's a mentality. You have to labor for it. It doesn't come naturally. Family is not naturally loving and caring, unfortunately. We have to make it such. You cannot make it such by imposing laws on protecting the family while you leave the members of the family to its abuse. So I guess we have to make these are things that we knew already, but we have to say them more and more, over and over again. And during the pandemic, of course, the whole issue of women's care labor has again surfaced. I know Italy has been a pioneer in this, in the 70s. This was a big issue. But we have to bring back some of these arguments and give more visibility to these arguments to show that these are all interlinked, that we need to have the post-recovery has to ensure that women's rights are observed. Otherwise, neither economically or otherwise, recovery will be possible for any country.
Hear, hear. And with this very wise reflection, I thank you very much, Yakin.
Thank you. It looks like we still have a long way to go. We're tired, but we have to energize ourselves and keep moving. Thank you, Loretta.
Thank you, Yakin. Thank you very much.